I'm here with Ms. Mairead Corrigan-Maguire, who is the co-recipient of the 1976 Nobel Peace Prize. And I'd just like to ask you to describe your experience in Northern Ireland and the conflict there, and how you came to become a peace builder.
Well, in the north of Ireland, we have got a very deep ethnic political conflict. There is a very long history to the conflict in the north of Ireland. But in the most recent conflict that broke out in 1969, when violence started, and out of that came, people were afraid. The community is very separated, so on both sides of the community, people were afraid. So there was burning of homes, and people fled out to the outsides of the city. And some of the politicians then called in the British Army, the British government, British Army to help. And the army came in essentially to be between the two communities, thinking it was, people thought this was a solution. But as time went on, we seen growing within this ethnic conflict paramilitary groups on both Republican and Loyalist sides. And then we seen the army becoming part of the problem, because, you know, armies can't face both ways, they choose a side. So the army became part of the problem in the situation. And the government tried to deal with that through emergency laws, which meant that they removed many of our basic civil liberties. I mean, Northern Ireland had the most draconian legislation anywhere. So that added all to the fear, to the confusion. So from 69 to 76, we had violence every day. I mean, not as bad as Iraq, but very bad. People being killed, homes destroyed, the city part bombed out of it. Nobody knew how to stop this cycle of violence, how to break it. So the three of us joined to what became a grassroots, spontaneous people's movement, which was tremendous, because in the first 6 months of that movement there was a 70% decrease in the rate of violence. And people begun then to say, well, what can we do, because the gun's not working, and let's work together. So it was out of that movement that we were awarded both the Norwegian People's Peace Prize and then the Nobel Peace Prize in 1976.
In your speech, which moved so many people in the audience, you mentioned that the greatest enemy is within, and that it is our own fear. So could you expand a little bit on that? What did you mean, and how can we overcome that fear as peace activists?
Well, the most important thing is that we can overcome our fear to a great extent, and that we can do what we have to do and be courageous. And you know, you can come into a realization that there's nothing to be afraid of, because after all, we're upheld. I mean, for those of us who believe in God, or those who don't, we know there's love, and we are loved by people around us. So there's really nothing to be afraid of. All will be well. So I think that's a spiritual journey, and we all have to make it in whichever way we best can make it. And it's an interior journey, because every single human being who's born has to deal with the human emotions of love, fear, anger, jealousy, rivalry, hate. There's a lovely old story told by the Native American Indians of a grandfather who was speaking to his grandson. And the grandfather said to the grandson that inside my heart I have two wolves, two animals inside my heart, and there is a fight going on. And one is angry and cross and violent and wants to punish those who would punish me. And the other one is gentle, kind and forgiving and loving. And the wolves are fighting. And the little boy said to his grandfather, and which will win, father, grandfather? And the grandfather said, the one I feed. So I think learning through our meditation, through our religious practices, to be peaceful and be kind and forgiving and loving. But that's a lifetime journey, you know, it's the inner journey. But I also really feel that we have got to really make an effort now of reaching out to those in the world who are living in poverty. The Millennium Development Goals to me are wonderful, because if we as ordinary people say to our governments, there's the resources, there is the intelligence, we can deal with these issues of poverty, basic human security, house, food, fuel, security for every man, woman and child in the world. We can do that, but we need to disarm. I really think we don't need NATO. You know, whenever the Warsaw Pact folded up, NATO should have folded up. What are we going to use NATO for? And NATO is actually a danger to us, because NATO is American-led, which is, in 6 European countries, they have got nuclear weapons with a first strike capability. And they're building now shields along the Czech and Polish country, right along the borders with Russia. They are really bringing us to a brink of a conflict between Russia and America, and we really need to say no to this as the people of the world.
And before we started the interview, you had mentioned the importance of everybody being informed on how to become part of the media. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I think this is tremendously important, especially now in the grassroots people's movement that we're seeing. Often in these violent, ethnic, political, armed conflicts, people either are, you know, they're often caught between those who are armed. For example, state military forces, which are in often cases the ones who really are carrying out the terror on people. And then on the armed, those who believe in the armed struggle to work for their human and political rights. So you're caught between these. And when peace activists come out in the middle and they're saying to both, look, we recognise your rights to fight for better social political conditions. You must fight for them, but do it non-violently. And we say to governments, we recognise that you have a role, but we don't accept that you should be using military tactics, torturing people, abusing people's human rights. You are supposed to be servants of the people. So often peace activists who come out in this situation will be very often ordinary people, particularly women, who are not academics. Now, but they know what their experiences are. But there would be a great gap between those ordinary people and the media, who come from often intellectual, well-educated backgrounds, or those who've educated themselves. So there's a kind of a tension there, and an apprehension, and a lack of kind of confidence on behalf of ordinary people to approach the media. You know, so I think in some ways we need to try to bridge that gap. We need to be able to bring both together, because the grassroots movements need the media. And the media, in a sense, are there to help the grassroots movement. You know, if the grassroots movement don't give the media the stories about peace, non-violence, human rights, democracy, what the problems are, then the journalists very often can't carry the stories. So we need somehow more media education for people in the non-violent movement, human rights movement, the alternative movement. And we need to bridge that gap that is, I feel, to some extent between us. And I think also too, we need, as people around the world, to uphold the rights for journalists not to be killed or hurt.
Okay. Thank you very much.